What is the connection between alien abductions, alien implants, artificial intelligence, and transhumanism? We'll briefly discuss the difference between alien abductions and ET contact. And we'll talk about the mirroring of the 5D awakening versus the 3D Great Reset. Thank you for showing up to this channel. This is the Thunder Wizard YouTube channel, the official gathering place for all 5D starseeds and lightworkers. In order to understand the reality that we live in, it is best to question your reality and then change it. If you like these videos, please come check out my website, thunderwizard.com, which is my Patreon page. There you will find access to very powerful energy practices helping you to shift to the new 5D awakening. You can also take a look at the shop if you want to get some of my most popular teachings and videos. My books can be found at michaelwilliamdenny.com. If you want to support me directly, you can go to support.thunderwizard.com, follow the instructions. You can also just simply click on the $sign button here at the bottom of the video anytime you watch a video. It's very appreciated. So, this is going to be a powerful one. I hope you stick around for this because this information is going to come out. Not from me. I'm giving you what I see and what I understand and what little I know. But very soon there's going to be real, true disclosure about UFOs, aliens, extraterrestrials, abductions, and stuff even greater than that. So keep your eyes peeled. But we will take a look at this. Specifically, I want to be talking to you about what is the connection between alien abductions, alien implants, artificial intelligence, and transhumanism. So I'm going to be sharing with you something that I heard, which is up on another channel, just to avoid, getting into any, any dust-ups either with YouTube or with other people. I'm not going to mention who it is, but if you follow the clues, you'll probably be able to figure it out. Anyway, what I saw on this interview with probably the most famous alien abductee in the world. This person revealed some information that took what I already knew about alien abductions versus extraterrestrials and blew it up in such a way when I saw what the real goal and the real long-term plan of this was. It was quite horrifically shocking. Now, you don't have anything to worry about because none of this is going to come to pass. Let me just tell you that. None of this is going to come to pass. And especially if you focus on your own empowerment, your own awakening, you have nothing to worry about. So let me first tell you that I am a regular contactee of extraterrestrials. I did Dr. Stephen Greer's Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind Protocols, or CE5, and I have been in regular communication with extraterrestrials, higher dimensional light beings, and even more. It awakened me and opened me in ways that are very fantastical and unbelievable, and I've talked about it in my books as well as, ad nauseum on this channel. So I am somebody who knows that extraterrestrials exist. So what I'm going to say might sound a little strange unless you're familiar with all of this. By the way, I recommend that everybody go to Dr. Stephen Greer's website, drstephengreer.com, and check out his YouTube channel. He has something like close to 1,000 actual whistleblowers as opposed to the 2 or 3 that you see showing up on mainstream media and on YouTube. And that's where the real disclosure is going to come. And anyway, let's get into this. So, again, alien abductions, implants, artificial intelligence, and transhumanism. So, by the way, just let me say that I have never been abducted. I've never been taken onto an alien ship. Most of the things you hear about in ufology and in movies, none of that ever happened to me. I did have personal physical contact. I did have energetic contact, and I have had ongoing telepathic contact as well as physical, sightings and those kinds of things. So I have had all that, and I can tell you that that is real. But having said that, let me tell you that alien abductions are not performed by extraterrestrials. Not one, ever. However, alien abductions do exist, and they probably still are happening. I imagine they're beginning to wrap that up. I don't know, but the beings that you know as grays, the typical grays and aliens and the blue beings, and you've also seen some other types if you're familiar with it or heard about it. So these abductions are real. They have happened. They've been going on my entire lifetime. I believe that's when they started, 1962, the year before I was born. They've been going on ever since. They are real. People are not making them up. I have spoken physically. I met physically with somebody who had been abducted, and I confirmed that this person was not deluded, was not mentally ill, and what happened to them was very real. However, and I regret this person didn't ask my opinion, and I should have been forthright, and I wasn't. But I'm here to tell you that those experiences are real, but they are done by humans. They are done by humans using all different kinds of stagecraft, as well as drugs, as well as directed energy frequencies, as well as everything you've heard is accurate, where people are put into a trance or they're unable to move and they're lifted up and transported through the air to ships and communicating with beings who do things to them, who experiment on them, who telepathically communicate to them. That did happen, but it was not done by extraterrestrials. It's done by humans with access to technology far beyond anything you know exist. And a lot of it is meant to mimic actual extraterrestrial encounters, like the kinds that I have on a regular basis. So I can tell you I have never been physically assaulted. I have never been experimented on. I have never been anything done to me physically negatively. Nothing has ever been done against my will. My boundaries have never been violated, ever. There have been experiences that have been very bizarre and mind-bending, because we're talking about higher dimensional beings, and definitely telepathic communications. I've seen things and experienced things that have, that completely beyond the three-dimensional human understanding that I've had my entire life. And many of these things can be replicated by the technology that humans have. So that's the main difference. Extraterrestrials do not abduct, ever. They never experiment. They never implant. So people who have been abducted have been implanted. Also, the other things that you've heard about the forced extraction of bodily fluids, of genetic material, the creation of hybrids, that all happens. That's a real thing. Because humans do have access to not alien, I don't like to use that word. They do have access to extraterrestrial bodies and extraterrestrial DNA, and they have been for decades been experimenting with creating human extraterrestrial hybrids, and those beings do exist. And they are in a hell. As I understand it, the successful creation of those hybrids, the people, the beings that are the result of those abominations are in a hell. They are not comfortable. They are not happy. And these are used, will be, if they're allowed to, they will be used for weapons purposes. Okay, so there's that. I wanted to make that clear. Now, agree with me, don't agree with me. I encourage you to research it, and not just research it in the ufology crowd or on books or movies or even mainstream news. Go to Dr. Stephen Greer's website and research it, and you'll find out that. I can tell you from personal experience, extraterrestrials never, ever violate your boundaries under any conditions. In fact, when extraterrestrials come to visit me, it's always in a higher dimensional state, meaning that they're phased out of the third dimension. Even if they physically, and I can feel if they physically come into my space, they're phased out of the third dimension. And I have evidence. If you want to go watch my video, How I Became an Extraterrestrial, you can see the video and physical evidence I have of what I was experiencing. But even when they do that, they always ask permission, always. And they will do things like send a message like, can I come talk to you? You know, is it okay if I come in? You know, they're always very polite like that. And it's always like that. So the idea of some strange being that looks like this showing up and, you know, coming through your roof or, you know, coming into your house and taking you hostage where you can't move and putting you into a stupor and taking you without your permission, that is not something that higher dimensional beings do. I talk about it in my book. It's basically, if you look at it from physics, it's an impossibility. Not because it's impossible for them to do something like that. It's impossible from a physics perspective because once you're in a higher dimension, it is literally impossible to cause harm or do anything that is perceived as harmful by somebody, because in higher dimensions you are quantumly entangled emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually with all other beings. So if they were to do something that you didn't want, was frightening to you or in any way harmful to you, they would be harming themselves, and they don't do that. So it's, from a physics perspective, it's impossible. So anybody who talks about dark force aliens or beings from the fourth dimension doing this or doing that to you, they don't understand physics. Beings from the second dimension, that's different. We're talking demons, ghosts. Beings from the third dimension, humans using technology, pretending to be aliens, that is fully possible. And if you look at all of the abduction scenarios, if you look at them and analyze them, I encourage you to do that, you will find out that even though some of the things that happen are bizarre and seem to be even paranormal, they are all very third dimensional. Being physically taken hostage onto a craft is a physical thing. Astrally going on a craft, that's different. And I'm here to tell you that higher dimensional extraterrestrials have zero desire to interact with you in that way, and they prefer not to come into the third dimension. For the same reason that you prefer not to go into some place that doesn't smell good or the music is too loud. They're in a blissful place. Coming down to the third dimension is not quite as wonderful. So they prefer not to do that. They have difficulty doing it right now because, as it turns out, the dark force humans that are here are currently at war with them. So whenever they phase out of higher dimensional, when their ships phase into the third dimension, they're immediately targeted, and they try and shoot them down. The dark force humans, that is. All right, so have I made it clear? ETs don't abduct. Abductions do happen, but they're not done by ETs. So now I want to talk to you about implants, artificial intelligence, and transhumanism. So you can probably guess from everything I've said, higher dimensional extraterrestrials have zero need to implant you. First off, that would be ridiculous for them. They are quantumly entangled with every conscious being, which means that they don't need that to track you. They do have technologies that they can use to track you, to track everything. They don't need to put some kind of thing into your arm or up your nose or in your wherever. Who does need to do that? Humans need to do that. Humans need to beep, 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 beep. They need to have something to track you with. Higher dimensional beings don't need that. So right off the bat, they wouldn't do that. Even if they wanted to, they can easily do it without you ever even knowing. So they wouldn't need to abduct you and experiment on you, stick something up your nose, or they wouldn't need to do any of that. They can do that very easily from just being in the fifth dimension. And just understanding how two-dimensional and three-dimensional beings work, it would be the same. If there was a two-dimensional world with two-dimensional beings, we would be able to track those beings very easily without them ever knowing it. If we could be watching them, they'd never even know it. Same thing with higher dimensions. And unless you know something about dimensions and physics, then you're going to conflate, as most people do, they're going to conflate dimensions with alternate universes, which is completely different. People talk about this thing came from another dimension and it was like our dimension but different. What they really mean is an alternate third dimensional universe. That's different. Once you're in a higher dimension, it means that you have access to that lower dimension, and that lower dimension will never see or know that you're there. So it doesn't make any sense for ETs to do that. It's ludicrous. It's a complete waste of time. But it is exactly what a third dimensional being would do. So if you were a human and you wanted to track somebody, you would stick something in them and ready to do something to track their signal. Now, I've been alive long enough, maybe some of you don't know, but like if you watch some of the old movies from the 80s, like Communion, for example, the character in that movie gets implanted and it comes out and the doctor's looking at it and all that. So it's a very clumsy thing, and you hear about that a lot. Well, we know that aliens exist because this person had some kind of tracking device, an implant that the doctor took out because it was infected and they found that it was from something, and this proves aliens, right? I remember that. Now, I can remember in the 80s, the idea of something this big being implanted in there or being implanted here or implanted in your brain, that sounded really high tech, and that sounded like, oh my God, aliens. But we now live in a world where humans can use nanotech. So if we, supposedly dumb, stupid, idiot humans, are able to use nanotech, things that are smaller than you can see with the physical eye, to track things and people, doesn't it make sense that beings that have traveled from Zeta Reticuli, hundreds, millions, or thousands of light years through wormholes, they have such advanced technology that they'd be able to at least be able to track you without sticking some clumsy thing, as big as your thumbnail that gets infected and comes out? Does it make sense? Of course not. So think it through. Now, what am I getting onto this? All right, so very recently, just within the past couple of days, I was watching an interview of the most famous alien abductee in history. He's well known. You'll be able to figure out who he is if I keep talking. A writer, very famous writer, and very open about all of his abduction experiences. Okay? I'm sure you can figure out who I'm talking about. He was on a podcast, very famous, not very famous, very popular YouTube podcast that I was on, as a matter of fact, a couple of years ago. And I saw that he was on it, and I had followed this person way back in the 80s before I knew anything about it, and I toyed with whether what happened to him was true or not. I came to the conclusion years later that I didn't think so because my limited understanding at that time, I could only think in 3 dimensions. So I thought there's no way somebody's going to get here faster than the speed of light, blah, 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 blah. So it's impossible. So I gave up on it. But I followed and I read his books. I read a couple of his books and I found it to be very enlightening and very empowering. And so I have a lot of respect for this person, and I have a lot of respect for his spirituality. Very intelligent. But if my experience with extraterrestrials is accurate, and what I know to be true about abductions is accurate, then that means that this person whose books I read, and whose movies I watched, and who I followed, in various ways, it means that I have to accept that this person was abducted and experimented on and implanted by humans using very advanced technology, mimicking extraterrestrials in many ways, and basically torturing and abusing this poor person. All right, so that is something that I've had to, ever since my experience, I've looked back on him and what I thought and like, wow, this is not everything I thought I knew about extraterrestrials is wrong on every level, especially the whole idea of implanting and abducting and all that. There's just no possible way. It's absolutely, completely, totally impossible on every freaking level. So that means this person who I respected has been abused. He's been abducted. He's been tortured, experimented on against his will, very likely been psychologically programmed, MK Ultra'd, probably since he was a kid. At least one of his children, same thing. Very horrific idea. And so when I saw him, I wanted to hear what he had to say. And I was kind of waiting to see if he was going to reveal what I knew. And I was absolutely shocked when I heard what he did reveal, which revealed to me something far more insidious and horrific than I had expected. And it has everything to do with the Great Reset, the New World Order, transhumanism. All right, so you've waited long enough. Now I'll explain what I heard him say. So he was talking about being implanted, and he talked about, I gathered that he had been implanted in his ear. Now I had never read this part in any of his books, so this must be something new that I don't know about. But he talked about being implanted in his ear, and that he was able to see in one of his eyes, text, words and letters going by very fast, like somebody was downloading information to him. And he was looking at it. Now, he is of the opinion that this is coming from the Greys. This is coming from what he believes to be extraterrestrials that have been abducting and experimenting on his whole life. Now, I have a response to that. And I guess I should get through the whole story before I start chopping it up. So he then learns how to be able to see sentences and words and things like that. And at one point he says, "Who are you?" And the response comes back, turns out it's his deceased wife. And then he rightly says, now that doesn't prove that it's her, but whoever's doing it wants me to think that. Then he goes on to say that he learned how to slow it down or something like that. I might not be getting that right, but he learned how to interact with it so he could get information. He went on to say that he wrote a book one of his most recent books, I guess with the help of this or through this, or it was some mind-bending information he was getting from that, and he wrote in. And to me, what first came out is he didn't say that I wrote the book in conjunction with whatever this is. He said, I wrote the book. But it's clear he was getting the information from, his supposed past spouse, who's, sending information through this thing and blah, blah, blah. He clearly believes it's coming from Zeta Reticuli extraterrestrials. And he believes that it's this powerful, beautiful, amazing information. Now, if I didn't know what I know, maybe if I had heard this 5 years ago or more, and I was open to it, I would think, wow, that sounds very powerful and kind of frightening and intense, but I would have been open to the idea of it being a benevolent experience. But knowing what I know, it's much more frightening. Here's why. The next thing he said was, and it just seemed to come out of nowhere. He volunteered this. And to hear him say this and not realize what it sounded like led me to kind of have the feeling of somebody who was absolutely MK Ultra'd and didn't really understand what the significance of what he was saying was. So he went on to say that then he got a phone call from a CIA doctor that he knows. Okay, right there. Why isn't that a huge problem? Why isn't that a huge problem? A CIA doctor? So then he goes on to say that the CIA doctor told him to go get some kind of a test like an MRI or something like that to, look at the implant in his ear. To which he replied, nobody's going to do that. And he says, don't worry, I'll set it up. Hangs up, I don't know, sometime later, not too long later, call comes back and, this abductee guy is talking to the people in the hospital who are saying, you've got your MRI test set up tomorrow morning at blah, blah, blah. None of this sounds strange to you? Why does a CIA doctor want to know about the implant in his ear, who obviously knows about this guy seeing text coming through him from extraterrestrials, he thinks? What is the CIA doing involved in that? And if this isn't something benevolent, can you imagine the absolute access you would have to somebody's brain and their mind to be able to, have just to download information, to program somebody? So it's very clear to me that this guy has been experimented on, been implanted in his brain and his who knows what. And having put that aside for a second, I'm here to tell you that extraterrestrials don't do that. They would never do that. Just for one reason, they don't need to do that. They wouldn't need to download text into your brain like that. Put it in front of your eyeballs. They wouldn't need to do it. They could, but they wouldn't need to. And they don't. The difference is extraterrestrials do not treat you like a lab rat. Human beings do. So what overcame me as I was listening was what he's describing is transhumanism. What he's describing is, our 1984 nightmare of you're being completely controlled technologically. Now, we've been programmed in our culture to believe that that's how ETs function. That they're these mindless, emotionless, technology beings that love, using technology, and there are people that make excuses for alien abductions. And the excuse that they make will be something along the lines of, well, these beings are from other civilizations. They're different species than us. They think differently. They're not like us. So it's okay. They're not being harmful. Like there are different moral codes on different planets, and we just have to accept that about them. And so they're not doing anything wrong. Their advanced culture makes it okay. We should just go along with it. Now, if I told you that humans did that, you would be outraged that humans are abducting people against their will. They're experimenting on them. They're experimenting on how to get into your brain and download information and make you see things and pretend to be your dead spouse. If I told you that was done by humans, you'd be outraged, because human morality doesn't allow for doing anything to other people against their will. It is wrong. It is abhorrent. Now, I'm here to tell you that the morality that we have as humans is the same morality as extraterrestrials, because extraterrestrials have souls exactly like yours. They feel the same feelings. The ones that are in higher dimensions, by the way, there are humans in higher dimensions as well. So it's not just other species. There are humans in higher dimensions as well, and their respect for your soul is even greater than anything in the third dimension. They love you more than you can even begin to imagine. Imagine doing that. Imagine having a child and experimenting on them, implanting them, and trying to control their thoughts and you wouldn't think of doing that. It's horrific. It's just wrong on every level. It's wrong in the entire multiverse. It's not just, on Earth, human culture. All conscious cultures have the same morality, which is first off, they experience their emotions and they experience their consciousness in the exact same way that you do. Perhaps they're in a higher dimensional place, makes it more intense. But in terms of their feelings, their sense of self, they are no different than you. And so what was horrific to me was this idea, and I realized what I saw is that I believe he was an experiment, clearly. And he's an experiment that they plan to, if given the opportunity, to unleash on all of us. And what they want, meaning the dark force humans, is they want to have complete access and control of you on all levels. Psychologically, emotionally, intellectually, physically. And they want to do to you what they've already done to him. Imagine a world where you get messages in your eyeball, into your brain. Imagine that. Imagine being MK Ultra'd to such a degree that, some being sends text into you and you use that to write a book and then claim it's your own creation. It's horrific. This is what I believe the end result of artificial intelligence is. Now, I'm not saying you need to be afraid of AI. This picture right here to the left, I made with an AI image generator. AI, you can ask it all kinds of questions. It searches the internet. It's a tool. But I'm seeing it being used in ways that are designed to get you to farm out your psychological makeup, your personality, your mind, over to a program that is going to mimic itself and turn itself into you. And eventually take over all of the things that you do, all of the thinking that you do, all of the calculations that you do, all of the, even the moral conundrums that you go through in life, finding your identity, going up against challenges, overcoming them. I made a video not too long ago where I had AI create songs for me, and they were really good. I saw a guy I did it because I saw a musician who took his lyrics and gave it to AI. And it was the most beautiful. I mean, he's a man, but the song was sung by a woman, and it was absolutely beautiful. And it was expertly crafted. And he said, "I can't imagine ever doing something better. This is how this song has to be." And he was struggling with how he felt about that. It's one thing for me. I'm not a musician, and I write some lyrics and I tell AI to make me a jingle, and it sounds good. But I'm not trying to do that. But a person whose their soul has a need to create, and it's being farmed out, and it's done so well that he now doesn't feel like he can make the tune, the music for his own song. It means the death of the human. The death of the human. It means that we lose our divine self-determination, our self-creation, our evolution. It means the death of evolution, which means the death of the species. I think that is what ultimately is going on. What that guy was, he's now a human being that is completely monitored and controlled by the CIA and doctors, and he writes books, and of course they're published, and all of that stuff, and he has no idea that he is not part of that process anymore. And that eventually all of your thinking will be done for you from inside your own brain. That's what transhumanism is heading towards. And I believe that is the whole idea behind abductions. Was 60 years of experimentation to create all kinds of things, but among many of them is to create the perfect obedient human who farms out their intellect, their psychology, and their artistry to somebody typing messages into your brain, or worse yet, programming an AI program to type messages into your brain. That's even worse. They don't have to do that. All they have to do is just create the program. Okay, find out the psychology of these people and tell them why they need to fall in love with the one world government and give their lives over and live in smart cities. And this whole time you're talking to some AI in your brain that's telling you that it's your dead your dead wife who loves you and wants the best for you, or we are benevolent extraterrestrials and we're talking into your brain for you, and just give us access to your brain. And again, I'm not talking about telepathic communication. That's different. They don't own your brain. You can shut that off whenever you want. I know, because I've done it. And the moment that you don't want to communicate, they will be gone. So the kind of telepathic communication that happens with extraterrestrials and the kinds of mimicked telepathic communication that the Dark Force humans do with their fake aliens is altogether different. Anyway, I babbled long enough, but you can go look for that. Who, I'm not going to give you his name. Very famous writer, screenwriter, the most famous abductee in history. And he is currently, just recently did an interview on a YouTube podcast channel that I was on a couple of years ago. So if you want to go look for it, you can. I'm going to put in here a link that I put in here of a video that I made about AI and my misgivings about it. So maybe watch that after you watch this. All right, that's it, my friends. I wish you all the best. You got nothing to worry about. I don't think any of this stuff is going to happen. Continue to do the meditations. Continue to connect yourself to your spirit and to the true spirit out there, and you'll be bulletproof. You got nothing to worry about. And it'll be interesting to see when all this stuff comes out, because it's coming out. All right, that's it. See you next time.